Inspire Instructor podcast, where the learning never stops. Welcome, you wonderful people, and thank you for listening to Inspire Instructor Training podcast. We've got a great episode for you today with the amazing San Harper, and we talk about mindfulness, which is San Harper is the mindfulness guru, and we also talk about our second to last competency. We're nearly through the competencies. Did the trainer maintain an appropriate non-discriminatory manner throughout the session? And that obviously sometimes links to being mindful as well. So that's why I got San on to talk about this one. Before we get onto the episode, I want to talk about our membership. I haven't mentioned it for a few weeks. And yeah, I'd love for you to come and join our membership. If you're interested in improving yourself as a driving instructor, it's definitely the place to go. We have everything you possibly could need in all the formats you can possibly want. Obviously, as podcast listeners, we have the availability for all of our courses are available on a podcast format, or you can go and watch them on the website. We have several Zooms up there now, and we're continuous. You get access to all of our previous Zooms, and you're continuously adding new Zooms. Whether you can make the Zooms live or not, they will be recorded for you to go and watch. We have courses on goal setting, reversing, expanding your toolbox, things you need to know that you might not have been told by your trainers. We have our FSS system. We have a course on the GD matrix, levels of instruction, the 5 skills, and then one that's really popular with all of our members is the sitting in on a lesson videos, where you get to watch another PDI or ADI's lesson, and then we give feedback as you go through that lesson. And actually recently I put a video of myself recording a lesson on there, and Diana did the feedback for that. So if you want to go and see me do a lesson, then sign up to our membership. Anyway, for now, we'll head over to the show. So welcome, Sam, to the Inspire Instructor Training podcast. First time on, and I've been meaning to get you on ever since I started, to be honest. So I listened to you before we and I've listened to you on Terry's podcast. I think you've been on Josh's as well. So I've been meaning to get you on, and I think the competency we're going to talk about today nicely sort of fits in with mindfulness, as you are the mindfulness guru. So yeah, welcome.
Hello again.
So my first question for you, San, actually is why should driving instructors be practicing mindfulness?
There's many reasons. It's funny, a lot of people have preconceived ideas, first of all, about what mindfulness actually is. And it's something that's really, really, really simple that we all need to do more of, and that is to pay attention. But it's not just paying attention, it's in a particular way. And John Kabat-Zinn, the guy that brought mindfulness to the West, 1979, he says it is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose and non-judgmentally. And the reason we all need to pay more attention is because only through being aware of what our actual reality is, what's actually happening for us, it kind of like creates a little bit of space for choice. Because most of the time we're an autopilot, and most of the time we're operating from a place in our heads, which is analysing the things that have happened in the past or projecting into things that are about to happen in the future. We don't actually spend an awful lot of time into what's happening right now. And that can really it's like an accumulative effect, really. And I know for myself, just with regards to physical pain, as an ADI, we spend a lot of time in the car, and I'd get home at the end of the day and I'd be in chronic pain. And the reason I was in chronic pain was because I was an autopilot, kind of in survival mode, getting through my day. I hadn't actually noticed how my body was responding, how much tension I was holding in my jaw and in my shoulders, and how the stress of my day was actually showing up for me on a physical level, because there's that big correlation between the mind-body connection. But we're almost detached from our bodies a lot of the time. And it's a really simple thing. It's just we learn to pay better attention to ourselves and what's happening around us, which obviously goes. It's a perfect combination, isn't it, with driving and driver training.
Yeah, it's something I need to get better at, and just kind of building my habit. And it's interesting. I went on the ADI walk back today, and to be fair, for the first time, no one else turned up. We've actually had quite big crowds, or like 5 or 6 instructors each time, which I was quite impressed with as it's just started out. Just happened to be everyone was like either on a test or on holiday or whatever. That we just didn't get any and actually, I'd preached to other people to like if you don't have an ADI walk back near you, just set one up because the thing that's going to happen is you're going to go for a walk on your own, and actually, there's nothing wrong with that. And to to a certain extent, I quite enjoyed it that no one else turned up because it's not often I go for walks on my own. I normally have the kids or my wife or whatever, and so it was quite nice to. And I deliberately didn't put headphones in or anything like that. I just went for a walk by the beach so you could hear the sea. And I was conscious, and also knowing I was recording with you later, I was conscious of being mindful as we were doing it. And so very much sort of kind of like listening to the sounds and just that sort of kind of. I remember you talked about on the course that you do about the beginner's mindset and sort of kind of being like exploring and stuff I genuinely got back in the car at the end of that walk feeling so much better, like more relaxed, just wasn't thinking about work. Or like you said, I'm always sort of kind of planning what am I going to do next with work or what have I got to do differently this week or whatever and stuff. And it was just nice to just not and just to be like chilled and stuff and just be present. So absolutely, I think stuff like and it doesn't have to like I think you said like people get that misconception that maybe it's sort of kind of sitting on a mat with your legs crossed and your sort of kind of poses doing like meditation. And it absolutely doesn't have to be that at all.
That's it. I know, and I saw your photographs. It looks lovely. I was quite envious, actually. Your beautiful walk by the sea. That's definitely my kind of walk. That is. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the only time we can ever be alive is now. We can't be alive yesterday. We can't be alive tomorrow. The only time we can be alive and breathe this air is right now. And yet we spend so little time, like mentally, in the now. So
Hmm.
it is a bit of a funny one, isn't it? What you just said as well is interesting about the practice itself, and that there are misconceptions, and it just might be helpful for people to sort of understand really the difference between formal practice and informal practice. So what you talked about is the sitting on a mat, and the meditation is a formal practice, and that is a part of mindfulness practice. And there's a lot of value in that. But is also value in an informal practice, which is what you did today, which is bringing attention to anything. And that could just be for a mindful walk, it could be washing up, making a cup of tea, anything at all. It's being with what you're doing, because it's funny, isn't it? One of the ADIs on the call said, do you know what? He said, the funny thing is, I go home at lunchtime now and I eat my lunch and I just eat my lunch. I don't eat my lunch and scroll my phone. I don't eat my lunch and look at Facebook. I don't answer calls or texts. I just eat my lunch. And I love it. He said, I really appreciate what I'm eating and I really enjoy it. And that's his practice. And it can really be, it helps us also to be, obviously, the awareness of our current reality is one thing, and then there's two elements to that. So some things we're going to be aware of that we can really savor and almost marinate ourselves in and enjoy, and that makes us for a happier life because we're paying closer attention to the good stuff. The other side of it is we also then become more aware of the challenges, and that can be the hard thing for a lot of people when they first start to practice mindfulness. Is it because we numb and avoid a lot of the time? We don't want to look at the hard stuff, and then that's where the compassion part comes in, and that's a big subject in itself.
Yeah, I don't think we'll try and teach people
Yeah.
mindfulness in one podcast. Um, the so I've it's so actually on that note then, so of like we've got this idea of it doesn't have to be this real complicated. It can just be quite simple, and actually I think that's the way I do it. I I think I would love to do the whole meditating, but I just know that I suppose it's a habit you create and stuff, but I've got enough trying to habits and stuff that I'm trying to create at the moment in my life. that it would be one too many things, and so I'm not setting that goal for myself because it wouldn't work.
I just want to say one thing on this. This is what kind of tickles me a little bit because I think it's really funny when people say that they find it hard to sit for 10 minutes and do nothing. Like I find that really easy just because that's
Yeah.
literally all you're doing. You're just going, I'm actually just going to sit and just do nothing for
Yeah.
5 minutes, 10 minutes. But we can't, can we? We can't just let ourselves just do nothing. And that's the interesting thing that, yeah, funny.
And it is, and I'm really aware of it. I am attached to my phone. I'm awful for it, and like particularly in the world we're in, like on Facebook and stuff. I'm answering messages, emails. So it's, a lot of it's work based, but it doesn't always. And I know I have this just habit of just picking up my phone and looking at it for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's so bad that you can sit down somewhere. Even today, like actually, when I sat down, I got my bacon sandwich, I got my coffee. I'm sat by the sea, and I deliberately thought I'm not going to pick my phone up because, like, look where I am. But I felt at least 4 times my hand went to my pocket, like involuntarily, like it just like goes there. And I was like, no, don't look at your phone, sort of kind of thing. And then it buzzed at one point, and I'm like, oh no, what's that? Is that a message? And it's so hard to sort of kind of like be just like you say, just detached from that. And I think that for me is maybe where people can get started is just like doing stuff like that. And I'm very aware since doing your course that as well as the benefits of it being in the car, which we'll get to in a minute. But I'm very aware in my sort of kind of own life that it just has helped me, I think, recognize those moments, and I'm not great at it, but I'm recognizing it and knowing when to go, wait a minute, what am I doing? Just put your phone away, or be in this moment, sort of thing. Stop stressing about this sort of kind of thing. So I think if nothing else, that's been beneficial from my point of view of how to sort of kind of practice
Yeah.
mindfulness.
And that's huge because really
Mm.
that's it. And everyone's practice is different. And I think it's important, like you say, we have to tailor whatever our practice is to ourselves. It has to work for us. And we don't want to sort of spend our lives feeling guilty or bad that we haven't done a practice if that's just not where we're at the moment. It's going to look different for everybody, and that's okay. But the thing is, like you just said, we call it actually falling awake
Hmm.
because we sleepwalk through life a lot of the time. And literally, what you just said is like falling awake, and we that either happens a few moments throughout the day, it might happen a couple of times, or it might start to happen a lot. But it's in those moments of falling awake that you notice, wow, I'm going for my phone again, or wow, I'm actually really hungry, or goodness, I'm actually really dehydrated, or there's a start of a headache coming. And it's in those moments we wake up to what's actually what we're doing and what's going on around us.
Yeah, no, I like that. Um, yeah, and I'm always sort of striving to do better, although we're supposed to not strive, but um, um, the so actually, if we bring this round then to in the car for maybe someone who's not aware of like how this mindfulness works, how like, what benefits do you see on your like driving lessons bringing, or even just maybe how do you bring it into driving lessons for pupils?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very organic for me. I just talk to them as we do. And it started off with my practice. I've got my own practice, and I just talk to them because the majority of my students, in fact, I'd say pretty much all of them, suffer with anxiety of some to some level or other. I've actually started teaching automatic last year, and I probably get people with more diverse needs through teaching automatic. Um, so first is to have the conversation. Some of them know a bit about mindfulness, some of them don't. And it filters through me. So my practice informs my lessons, it informs how I teach, what I bring to the car. And that could be as simple as the energy that I'm bringing. We all know those days we've had where we're stressed, we're tired, we're a bit cranky, and we've got that one pupil who's really struggling, and you can feel it. It's like a flipping a boiling pot, and we've all been there. And so I think first of all, recognizing what our own needs are, meeting our own needs, and and also setting our own boundaries is the first thing. So we're actually laying the foundations for that lesson to be even able to be of use to that pupil in the first place. Because if we're not bringing the right ingredients for that in the first place, that's not going to help. And then there's really practical things that we can bring, the practical elements of noticing the fact that the pupil isn't breathing. They breath hold, don't they? They tense up, they hold tension, they hyper focus. All the physical, the fight, flight, freeze, fear response shows up. They zone out. They do this freezing up thing. They get really angry. It's the body's natural responses. And when we understand a bit more about what's going on there, we can help to explain that there's nothing wrong with them. What's actually happening is completely normal. And then we can actually help to support them with regards to just feeling a bit more, less like they're in a straitjacket. It can feel like a straitjacket, really, for a lot of them. And it also helps them to relate to what's happening around them and the decisions and the behaviours of other drivers as well. To see it really from a more sort of biochemical aspect, because that's what it is. It's biochemistry happening, but we're not aware of it. So we just take it at face value, and we get triggered, and then we act it out. We get cross, we get upset, or they get cross and upset, and when we fall down the rabbit hole reactivity, before we know it, we're through the day or through the lesson or whatever, and this is just built up and built up. By the time we realise it, we're home, we're snapping at the person we live with, or the kids, or the dog, or whatever, because we've not noticed what our needs were a lot earlier on and what our boundaries were. So it's kind of very much multifaceted, really, that aspect of helping ourselves in order to help our students.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember you mentioned that on the course that it's like, yeah, I think there was interesting about your course, which lasts 6 weeks, which I loved about the fact that it was just, because it isn't just go and get lots of information. It is a practice. Like you have to start practicing this sort of behavior and awareness. And I did notice that, yeah, you like you say, you bring that energy into the car. You reminded me of something actually when you were talking there, because like I said about how I don't necessarily do the whole sit and like not as a meditate, but sit and be mindful. But I think that's partly because I'm not teaching learners anymore, so I've got rid of that stress. Um, but I think there's an element of when I was going from driving lesson to driving lesson, that I did do that. I did actually make sure I had like a little 10-minute slot before a lesson or after or in between the lessons, basically, where I effectively switched off from that previous one and got ready for the next one. And I had those. I was in the car. I played some mindfulness meditation. Did like a what do you call it? The body thing where you go
Body
from,
scan, yeah, body
yeah,
scans one,
body
yeah,
scan. And I would do something like that and just it would nicely set me up for that lesson. So I'm
yeah.
bringing the correct energy into the car. It's also something I would do with my learners. Not all of them, but just that certain pupils would definitely prefer that to others. That body scan or just a few moments when we got in the car to throw out the day's
Yeah.
stress and get ready for the, like, again, it's that being present, isn't it? So get ready for like this is what we're doing for the next couple of hours.
There's huge value in that. And I always liken it to think like the mind's like a snow globe. You shake the snow globe and it's just like a flurry of particles of snow. And that's what the mind's like a lot of the time.
Mm.
And exactly what you just said is allowing that snow just to settle and things just become a little bit clearer. And I think there's huge value in taking a bit of time between lessons just to let that snow settle, just to take that bit of time out. It makes a massive difference, even if it's just 5-10 minutes. But the funny thing is a lot of people just don't do it. They just literally from one pupil to the next, quick turnaround time, and they're not actually registering how they're feeling or what they're bringing, until they've maybe snapped or they've something's showed up that perhaps in hindsight they think actually that I wish that hadn't happened.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's worth that, and I get there's time constraints and stuff, but maybe it's about building in that time.
Yeah.
Um, the you were also talking about how you respond to other drivers, and I found that bit quite interesting, where it's about, I suppose, having empathy for the other drivers. And you're gonna have to remind me of this, but it's like how you respond to stuff, so you I can't remember how you describe it, but it's like you can control how you respond to it. Is that
Yeah, there's a I think it's called the Serenity Prayer, and you can insert whatever what words you want to make it fit for you. But it's something like, may God give me it's something like the courage to change the things I can change. Um, the It's gone off my head now. It's something like the courage to change the things I can change, the strength to accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And when it comes to other people's behavior, we have no control. So it's being wise to that, and also recognizing this is the thing I've got to say, since practicing mindfulness and compassion myself, I've been a much more compassionate instructor, not just with myself and my pupils, but with everybody around me, because I recognize as well, this is another really good one, behind every display of anger or display of challenge or whatever, when you see somebody acting out in some way, it's a tragic expression of an unmet need. And that's a really interesting one to recognize. When people are doing things and they're acting out and they're behaving in a certain way, it's because they've got something going on for them. It's got absolutely nothing to do with us. We're just a trigger. It can be really helpful for pupils to understand what's going on for this other person, and the fact that these chemicals being released into their brain, it's not their fault. It's just, this is, we're human, we're all human, and this is how we survive. These things happen, we have these chemicals rush in, and fight, flight, freeze. For some of us it shows up as a fight, but it's pretty much always about an unmet need.
Hmm.
um, yeah, and when you understand that, you kind of actually, I'm not saying it makes it, at the end of the day, we're all human. We get triggered and we get upset. Of course we do, when people behave in a way that is challenging, for example. I think for me, that it doesn't last long. The sting just doesn't last long. I might hurt, I might feel it initially. Whereas before, I'd be a huge ruminator. I would dwell on things, and I would take things really personally. And that's really bad for our mental health.
Hmm.
When we start to chew it over, we chew it over and we chew it over, we take it personally, and it upsets us. Actually, it's never got anything to do with us.
Yeah, there's a couple. This is something I'm actually quite. I feel like I'm quite good at is not respect like responding or not dwelling on other people's behavior. And I think this one actually, particularly in the car, is because road rage is a thing. I think in the car, I think it's really important to be having these conversations with your pupils because you're planting that seed that they may go off and have this attitude towards driving rather than this like I don't know. There seems to be like a once you get in a car, it's like everything's a battle. It's like you're in my space, get out of my zone, that sort of kind of thing. And it all becomes territorial, doesn't it? And I think there's this sort of kind of it just your chimp basically goes
Yeah,
on full alert. And having that conversation, I remember I was chatting to Diana the last night actually, and she said that she was doing a turn in the road with her pupil, and she said it's the first time it's happened in like ages. Was she the pupil just took a little bit too long getting into first and moving off, and the car that was waiting to go around them gave them the middle finger as they went past. And my first instinct when she said that wasn't like, oh, what an idiot. My first instinct was, I wonder what was going on with that person. And I'm quite good at that sort of kind of, and that's the conversation I'd have with the learner because that's a like an overreaction to what's just happened. So in a way, you kind of know it's got nothing to do with you.
yeah,
And so yeah, it's interesting. And the other story I kind of had recently was we went to a park run with my wife and kids and dog, and there was one of the marshals and called my wife an idiot because I'd dropped back because my wife's a lot fitter than me. Um, and so she had both kids who were running, like little 2-year-old running, and the dog was attached to the pram. And it was a bit tricky to sort of kind of manage it all, but she's out there, like with the family. The kids are getting exercise. They're out having a great time. And the marshal said that lady is an idiot, and my wife turned around and said, "Excuse me, what?" She goes, "Yeah, you're an idiot for not being able to control them and stuff instead of this." And she really struggled to and my wife sort of kind of like she got mad, she wrote a letter and stuff to the people, and but even a few days later she really struggled to kind of let it go, and I get it because it was like it hit her, but it's I think it's in that moment again it's like okay, maybe that wasn't about you, like maybe.
Oh, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. But it still hurts, you know.
Yeah.
And I think this is why I think I'm such an advocate of mindfulness. Everybody needs to practice it. That Marshall, if it was a mindfulness practice person, say for me, for example, if I saw somebody doing something and I had judgment thoughts about that, because that's obviously what was happening, they had a judgment thought. And I guess there was some sort of a fear of something going wrong or maybe somebody thought, you know, whatever was going on for that person. But it's recognizing, wow, I'm having judgment thoughts. I'm having a fear response here. And that creating space for me to respond to that situation in a much more compassionate way rather than just blurt out the words that as this person did, you
Mm.
know. But it is absolutely we do take things personally because people words can be very impactful. But 100% it was about that person's own fear. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like you said, it's not easy to do
It's not
that.
easy.
No.
And
Um,
that's why mindfulness is a practice.
yeah.
It really is. And the more you practice it, you get better at it. I mean, even for people like me, I've been practicing mindfulness for 6 years. I still get triggered. I still, react when things, particularly with my husband. You know, he might say something, but like I say, I've got a bit more control over kind of how long that goes on. How long would have it upset me for? Initially, yes, I would have been like, oh, that's a bit rude, you know, but I probably would have been over it pretty quick, just because I've got the practice, and it's not easy. And this is why meditation is of value because, like we talked earlier on about going to the gym and strengthening our physical muscles, when you practice meditation, you just get better at it. That's really the nuts and bolts of it. You just get a bit better at being able to respond rather than, yeah, react.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. It's something that I got better at as I've gone through
Mm.
the more I do it. I don't think I do it as actively as I sh could do. But for me, it kind of works. Like for what I'm doing, and I think it just occasionally it comes to my mind that I need to be more mindful of this or in that scenario. And I think from a point of view of driving instructors, like my very first question was why should driving instructors do this? And I think to be honest, just because of the environment we're in that car environment where it can be quite territorial, and stressful environment, and you're in an environment where your part of your job is to create a nice, and this will kind of come on to what the competency we're going to talk about, but you're trying to create an environment for learning. Um, and so I think from your point of view as an instructor, I think it's probably you kind of need to be in that sort of kind of be mindful of how you're feeling, how you're behaving, to be able to create that environment.
100%. And it is that big picture thing, you know, you're seeing the big picture because it does affect so many things. It affects our ability to perform as an instructor because it's hard. It can be really hard at times doing the work that we do. So it's the ability to perform, the ability to look after ourselves, take care of our own needs, you know, have our own boundaries met, and how we're feeling. But that also sort of spills out into all areas of life. You know, our other interactions with our family members, the people in our lives, and what we're able to sort of just a general sort of equilibrium, just to be able to sort of feel that we're in balance. So we don't have these days. I was talking to somebody actually the other day, and they said to me that at times they just didn't want to go out in the car. Drive instructor saying, actually, I got to the point where I just wanted to cancel lessons and just not go. You know, it can get so bad. Our own anxieties and stresses can get so bad. And I'm not saying that I mean, that there's obviously value in going to see the doctor, and you know, there might be things that people can be prescribed, and that's fine. but it's almost like, well, long term, is that going to work for you long term? And is there anything that we can learn that actually it's about introspection? It's about, instead of looking for the answers externally, it's about looking internally, and it shines through. You know, when we have this meditation practice, it literally, they call it the golden thread of mindfulness, because when you practice mindfulness, you can't help for it. It can't help but it to filter
Mm.
out into all of your interactions.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you were talking about like you can potentially get medication and stuff, and you're right, absolutely. If that's what you need, you need. Um, but maybe mindfulness is an element of prevention rather than the sort of kind of medication. I'm sure it has benefits to bring you back to it as well. But for me, I suppose actually, interestingly, going to the gym and trying to get healthy again, I suppose it going to the gym is my prevention. My the other side of that would be to get diabetes and have to take the medicine sort of kind of thing. So I think it's that sort of if you're talk, and I think people see that, don't they, in physical terms, they see that sort of kind of like, oh, I need to get healthy. They don't necessarily everyone does it because that's also not as easy as it sounds. But yeah, they see that, and I think it's the same sort of kind of thing. Mindfulness is that it stops you getting to that point, or you recognize that you're getting there earlier, and that can get put in prevention.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, I know many people who are super fit, but they're not mentally super fit.
Hmm.
They spend a lot of time on the external, but not much time on the internal. And it's hard. It's really hard. And it's some people just aren't ready to go there, because it means it's a bit like ripping off a plaster. Where we're all covered in wounds. We've all gone through things in life that affect us. And it's like we put the band-aid over it, and we know it's there, it's a bit sore, but it's easier if we just avoid, if we just ignore it.
Yeah,
That's the thing with mindfulness, it's about actually ripping that plaster off and exposing that wound, and then working with, practices to help to heal that, so that you then are stronger and more resilient and more resourced in life.
absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
it's a lovely way to finish our mindfulness chat. Although I can imagine it's going to come up in the second half of what we're talking about. I think that we have massively just scraped the surface of of mindfulness there. Like really, really only just scraped it. And if anyone is interested in mindfulness, I would 100% recommend going on your course. I don't know the name of the course, sorry, but I know it's over
Yeah,
6 weeks. The
it's mindfulness and compassion for driver and rider trainers. We've got one running right now at the moment. We're on week 3 this week, and then we've got another one starting on June the 5th.
mm,
And people can get, there's going to be an early bird. I think it's 5% at the moment, off, early ADI, for a little while, so people can go and check it out. But so people feel free to ask me questions if they're just interested, really.
yeah. Well, it gets my vote. It's one of my favorite courses I've been on, certainly in
Oh,
recent
thank
years.
you.
I think it's just the element of not just the content and the fact you practiced it as well. So it was practical. It wasn't just you preaching at us for an hour or so. And also I like the fact it was over 6 weeks because you you can come back with any questions and you can go practice it during the week and then go, well, I tried this, but this didn't work, or this went well, or this didn't go well. It's quite nice, that sort of kind of thing, rather than a big bunch of information and then like see you later. um and like you
Absolutely,
say, you
yeah.
get to join the WhatsApp group and stuff after that. So it's that ongoing sort of kind of, like you said, it is a practice, and so having that element of it being ongoing, you become part of that kind of community. I think it's quite important to sort of kind of like have that with something like mindfulness.
100%. Yeah, that's it. That's why it was important to me to have some sort of a support thing in place, because exactly that, it's a bit like sending somebody off to get fit at the gym and then closing the gym. You've got at least sort of help to people to support them in their practice, I think.
Yeah. So, shall we move on to talking about our competency? I am rattling through
Yeah.
these and nearly finished. So, the competency we're going to talk about today is, oh, I don't know the exact wording. Did the instructor act in a non-discriminatory manner?
Yes.
Um, so what are your thoughts on that as a competency?
Well, that is the thing, isn't it? We're all human, and we want to behave a certain way in the car on our lessons, and we want to convey certain attitudes. Of course, we do. And depending on how we're feeling, is going to make that more difficult or not. So if I'm stressed, and I've had a build up to things, and like we talked before, it's always something that's going on for me in my life. If I'm not aware of that, and if I'm not addressing it, and I'm not dealing with it, it's going to show up. Whether I expect it to or not, it's going to show up somehow. And that just might be with an outburst, in some description. It might be being less tolerant. It might be even getting a little bit, what's the word for it? With your pupil, just getting a little bit um,
Aggie.
aggy, aggy. Yeah. We're human. And it just, I guess, mindfulness, it literally is like a foundational capacity for all of this stuff. It's just the foundations. You're setting the foundations. You can't build a house on dodgy foundations. If your foundations are dodgy, you're going to struggle. So what mindfulness does is it helps you to firm up your foundations, your own personal foundations, so that you can bring your best self. And if you're
Yeah.
bringing your best self, you're not going to be worrying about whether you're going to be getting cross with somebody or you're going to be mouthing off something. And like I said, it's made me a more compassionate instructor. It's made me definitely see the world through different perspectives and not just my own, realizing that we're all dancing to the beat of our own drum. Never about me, whatever my opinions are about other people or the way people choose to live their lives. um I think it just enables you to stand back, see the bigger picture, and just bring your best self, to be honest, to work every day. And
Yeah.
then when you're doing that, you haven't really got to worry, are you? Because that's just your second nature. You're not pretending.
True. And actually, yeah, you're right. It should, yeah, it shouldn't be an act, should it? No. And I think it's interesting within this competency. If we were thinking about standard check and pot free, it could be like if you're bringing in that tension, which you might be on a standard check and pot free, just because you're stressed of the thing. It could be your body language, something simple as that. It doesn't even have it, or your tone of your voice. So you might be saying the right things, but you sound angry or stressed at what's just happened, or you sat there with your arms crossed like like I'm not happy with my day, sort of kind of thing. And pupils will pick up on that, whether even subconsciously they might pick up on it, and that then bleeds into their driving and having that effect. So absolutely, there's an element of that playing out in this competency. I think the other thing with this competency as well, that again maybe links to what we were talking about earlier about how we respond to other drivers. So one of the common things you can get picked up on this competency is being stereotyping, and situations like that. So, BMW drivers as he cuts in front of you, that sort of thing, or all van drivers are like this, and that sort of kind of vibe. Um, and even in a sort of kind of joking manner, it kind of creates this persona to the pupil that again they're going to go look for that, and then you get the confirmation bias, because then you every time you see a van or a BMW driver do that, it confirms your opinion of this, versus all the times you saw BMW drivers driving it absolutely perfectly, but you don't remember those because they don't come in. And I think that's partly about being mindful as well, and how you respond and how you have empathy for the other drivers.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And what mindfulness does is it helps you become more aware. So you become aware of those unconscious bias. They start showing up and you're like, oh my God, oh, there I go again. I did that earlier. I do that. Oh my goodness, I do. That's what I do. Or my habits that I might not be aware that I do. And we become, through this awareness, we start to see ourselves. We actually become the watcher of ourselves,
Hmm.
which is a bit weird. But that's what we do. And then we can start to recognize those habits. And through that creates a bit of space. And then we can maybe choose, actually, I'm not going to say that. We might go to say something. Oh, actually, I'm not going to say that today. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
that. I'm going to try not to say that anymore. That's not really, is that really in line with what I really believe? Is that my conditioning through my parents, my friends, the people I mix with? Is that what that's about? This is where we come back to this introspection, isn't it? what's really going on.
Yeah, and I think it's the way you're sort of kind of talking about it is like again. It has to be this. Oh God, my fans have set off on my car. Um, it has to be this element of all the time. You can't just go right. I won't say that on a standard check or part three. It has to be how we always are because one, you'll either be overly conscious about what you're trying to say on the standard check on part three, and therefore that's taking brain space that you could be using to develop this lesson. And it means you end up being really conscious on the standard check and unnatural. So as with everything we do on these competencies, I think it should always be about this is how we always do it because then when we get to the standard check part three, it just becomes a natural lesson. Um, and I think this competency is the same. I it's interesting. I remember talking to Lou Walsh about this competency and how quite often people get quite offended when they don't get a free in this one because they always see themselves as like, well, I don't discriminate against anything. And they always sort of kind of just be like, wait a minute, I'm not rude. And I think actually quite often this competency you get marked because I don't think necessarily, certainly on a part three or standards check, I don't think anyone's going out there and going to be deliberately sort of kind of rude to other people, although because they know the examiner's watching. I think this happens sometimes accidentally. I think
Of
people
course.
are accidentally offend or accidentally um get into the pupil's zone or whatever. And so that can really sort of kind of catch people out. And again, this goes back to if you are always like this, it doesn't then happen accidentally.
And this is coming back to this whole idea and very, very simple notion that mindfulness is about being better aware. That's it.
Mhm.
That's what you're practicing. You're becoming aware of your external environment and your internal environment. And you get better at being more aware. And when you're more aware, you've got more control. And this is the thing, you see, we have these unconscious biases and we don't mean to upset people. We say things without thinking because we're not consciously we're not so conscious as what we're doing.
Hmm. I think
It's
sometimes it not doesn't necessarily what comes out isn't what was in your mind as well. I think that can happen. So something that I recommend for pretty much all driver training, but this competency as well is recording yourself and watching yourself back on a driving lesson. I think that's super useful because again, it's about becoming aware because you're watching yourself from the outside and you're like, oh, did I say that? Is that something that happens in mindfulness as well? Is there like an element of the people sort of just suggest that? I don't know how you would do that, but it
I
seems like
mean,
a
you,
really good
you
idea.
you do become not with regards to recording, I suppose, in the sense that you're talking about for training purposes,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's certainly about observing. It's like holding a mirror up.
Mm.
This is what you do. You practice awareness and you practice being the watcher of yourself. So you spend time watching yourself. You step back and you observe your habits and your behaviors and the way you respond to things, and you start to see your triggers, the things that maybe we've all got a little bit of a little thing that is our little bugbear. You start to become aware of that, and that's all through our conditioning, things we've gone through our lives, childhood, etc. And definitely, it starts to hold a mirror up, and you start to see yourself, the reality. And actually, for a lot of people, that's really hard. It takes a bit of courage to even go there, because as human beings, we want to take the easiest route possible. We don't want to look at anything that's difficult. We just want to smooth it all over and pretend it'll all just go away.
Yeah.
And that might work to a degree for so long, but it doesn't it's not going to last forever.
Interesting. Yeah. It just intrigued me that because I get that it's quite hard in mindfulness because you're effectively recording your life and that wouldn't really work.
Yeah, but
But
you
it
but you kind of yeah, but this is the thing, you see. This is where meditation, the practice of meditation, is practicing that.
Mhm.
And through meditation, it's really funny. You start to get insights. For example, you might be meditating, right? And next door's dog might be really barking, and you might have all these feelings churned up like that, and you're getting all annoyed about that. Normally in life, you just get annoyed about it, and that's kind of as far as it goes. But with meditation, you start to learn to sort of bring the idea of a beginner's mind and curiosity. Well, what's that about? What's that actually? How's that showing up for me? That dog barking is actually having a physical effect on me. It's actually, it's kind of like, it's actually making me feel jarred inside. It's jangling my nerves. That's what's happening. So you start to recognize how you're responding to things. And what's that about? Why is that dog barking really bothering me? Because I'm attached to the outcome of this situation. I'm attached to having a nice, peaceful time. And that's not happening. So I'm attached to that outcome. How do I unhook myself from that attachment? Am I able just to be with this experience as it is with the dog barking? What might that be like? Just to be with it, with the dog barking. How might that feel? Do you see what I mean? So it really invites introspection, and we start to, through meditation and practice of meditation, almost like an internal mental it is a mental monitoring. We start to see how we're responding to things, and then you see how that plays out in life, and it's actually very interesting. You almost become a bit of an archaeologist of yourself. You start to dig around in the dirt a little bit. You dig around in the dirt, and then you start to find some quite interesting truths,
Yeah,
and then you've got something to work with.
sounds a bit scary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it can feel a bit scary, 100%.
mm.
Yeah,
So just with this competency again, I'm just thinking a couple of things that I know that people get sometimes, what I call like the accidental, well, I hope they're accidental, but generally the accidental sort of kind of mistakes on this one, are personal space. I think that's quite, and actually this again links a little bit to mindfulness, because I know when we talked about getting pupils to do body scans, it was about maybe not necessarily having your eyes closed because of the feeling uncomfortable within that area, or if they want to, they feel comfortable, that's fine. But I know I did a mindfulness with a pupil, and we were sat in the car park, and you feel really exposed sat in a car with your eyes closed.
yeah,
So you're able to sort of drop your gaze, but it's also elements of I tell one that I think catches a lot of instructors out is having the diagrams and making sure they're in a central space between the two of you. So it's like a shared space, not on your lap. Because that's the people then coming into your personal space, which can make people feel uncomfortable. Or the other way around, have it in give the pupil the diagram, if you can then from your side of the card do the talking without having to lean across. Like if you're having to both touch the diagram and stuff like that, then have it in that shared space. I think that can catch people out. Certainly things like reaching across to do dials or whatever it is, or press that button and stuff. I think that should be kept to safety critical moments, so grabbing the wheel or potentially cancelling the indicator. I think if they're having to put the lights on, you can talk them through that, um, and not reaching across. I think that's people get caught out with things like that accidentally, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, absolutely,
um,
absolutely.
and certainly in the environment that we're in with this enclosed space, quite often with an older and a younger person, particularly if you've got male, female as well. I think that can really kind of make someone feel uncomfortable with you reaching across unintentionally.
Uh, And I think it's really always good to have a conversation with somebody. I mean, I've known with some of my pupils, I have to grab the wheel quite a
Mhm.
lot. And I'll say, are you okay with me reaching over? Are you okay with me making contact with you? And they're like, oh God, of course, but I just like to just clarify that.
Crazy.
Is this okay for you? Like this is kind of what we're needing to do. How does that feel for you? Is that okay?
Hmm.
You know? Yeah.
What would you
And
do if
even
they
with
said no?
mindfulness, huh?
What would you do if they said no? It's not okay. You still got to grab the wheel.
Well, I'd say, well, we'll have to just go around a car park.
Yeah.
I can't be having you hit, like, I can't risk you hitting a car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's that they're paying the money to have that structure of the lesson as they want it. But I've got to manage the risk, haven't I?
Yeah. I think absolutely. I think you're right to bring it up. I think it's the key. I don't can't imagine any people saying no. I'm not okay with that, to be honest.
No, I
But
can't. And I think
yeah,
you get engaged with the pupils, but I often would just say it just because I just think it's just worth. I don't know. For me, it's the elephant in the room. Sometimes it's just say it, or even with the mindfulness practice, I might say, when I'm stressed, I find breath awareness really helps me. Would you like me to share it with you? Have the conversation. And then the contraindications, is there any difficulties for you around that? If it doesn't feel comfortable, then that's perfectly fine. How do you feel about talking about um, dealing with anxiety? Is that something you find you'd like to explore a little bit with me, or does that just talk to them? They're human beings at the end of the day, and I think as long as that's done respectfully, um, yeah, and with real care, wanting to make their lives easier, then nobody could really criticize you for that. I
Yeah.
don't think.
But you're right about bringing it up. I think if you accidentally touch people's hand while you're grabbing the
Yeah.
wheel, I think if you then just come back and then carry on talking about the reason why you grabbed the wheel, you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
There is an element of awkwardness going on there of the people going, "Oh, go touch my instructor." I
I,
don't think
I
they're necessarily thinking it's weird, but it's just there's an awkwardness there.
I've got to say, I would imagine, and I don't know because I'm not, but I think if you're a male instructor, that's possibly more the experience. I don't personally, I've never felt that because not, I mean, to be honest, not all of my pupils are female, but I don't know. I've had female pupils get in my car very scantily dressed in the past, and I've gone through my mind, if I was a male instructor, I would feel very uncomfortable with this. So I don't know. That dynamic is perhaps different depending on.
I think it
Um,
is, and just because it is,
yeah, It's
basically,
true. It's a fact, and I feel very maternal actually towards a
yeah.
lot of pupils. I feel like a mother figure, sort of. But yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. It's a very difficult one to navigate. I think people.
Yeah,
It's
and
been
I think the key, like you
difficult.
said, is communication. Is just having those conversations with your pupils, and I think actually, if in those early lessons you explain that boundary that
Yeah,
this is my side, that's your side, and like if I and just say like if I accidentally grab your like touch your hand while I'm trying to grab for the wheel, I'll apologize and but I'm doing it for safety reasons. Explaining something like that is good. I think the other one that happens is the other way around when they're changing gear and then they slip and hit your leg. And I
yeah, I've
think
had
there's a
that.
couple of things that can happen there. Again, you could ignore it, which I think can make it awkward. And I think this is potentially worse, but I can see why instructors do it, is make a joke about it in like a, oh, you have to take me on a date or something like that
We'll
before you do.
go. I make a joke. I also, oh, you're getting violent now, punching me in the
Yeah.
leg, and they laugh. I was, oh, punch me in the leg. Oh, sorry. But I think you've got to laugh. I
But
really
I
do.
think in that side of the joke is probably fine. But I think if you make it as a if you make you're not going to buy me a drink first, that
No,
sort of
no,
thing, I
no,
think can make
no.
it.
I
But I
wouldn't even
don't
go
think I
there.
think someone could easily do that without having any connotations about it, but just it can make the situation
That's
awkward.
why I think we've got to be really careful and
Yeah.
definitely never, ever even go there with regards to innuendo for
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's and yeah, because and there'll be people maybe listening to this going, "Oh, you guys not have any banter in your car and stuff like that," and this is where you got to be careful. Like, absolutely, you need to build rapport and have fun with your pupils, but I think you need to remember it also we're in a professional environment.
And it's about boundaries. It's
Yeah.
about our boundaries too. I think if I was a male instructor and if I had a pupil behaving in a way to me, or even as a female, if somebody
Mhm.
was making me feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, in fact, I have had it happen once, long, long, long time ago, and I would address that 100%. Like, I've noticed what you've just said there, that actually makes me feel quite uncomfortable. We're perfectly entitled to talk about how we feel.
Mhm.
And if somebody is overstepping our boundaries, I think that's definitely a conversation that needs to be had. 100%.
Yeah.
Funny enough, actually, somebody texted me the other day and I didn't know them from a bar of soap. And they called me Hun. And this Hun, this and Hun, that. And I actually texted back really nice. I said, do you mind just calling me San? Because my husband calls me Hun. And you calling me Hun just feels a bit weird. And she came back, she went, oh, of course, sorry, Sam. And she's lovely, and we've got a really good, lovely relationship. But it just didn't feel right for me. I just found it made me feel a bit weird. So I told
Mm.
her.
I think on that note, actually, that is something to be wary of the other way around when you're messaging your pupils as well as having
Mm,
because again, this is where sometimes you can get marked down like, on a standards check for this is like colonialism sort of things like say it like it might just be natural to call people hun and love and stuff like that and like it doesn't feel like it natural to me but I can imagine in certain areas and certain places and stuff that is just the way
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
My brother? Yeah.
yeah, that sort of kind of thing. Yeah, that'd be sort of our Southwest one.
Colloquialism. Yeah.
And again, it's just remembering again, it's just having that professional sort of kind of language and stuff
Yeah.
and even just like this wouldn't come up on a standards check, so you're not going to get marked down on it. But like you said about text messages, just being really careful about how you send your messages, like and the language you use on your messages and trying to
You've got
keep
to
that
protect,
professional.
as a man as well, and as a woman, you have to protect yourself as well,
Mm.
because you don't want to be accused
Yeah,
of trying to groom somebody or acting in an inappropriate manner. So you have to protect yourself as well, I think.
yeah,
You're communicating
yeah.
with somebody.
And you got to remember, particularly things like text, that context
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you lose the ability to sort of kind of have the tone of your voice and stuff like that. So what one thing I remember Diana told me a story about an instructor that she was talking about that I can't remember what they said. Oh, actually, this wasn't a text message. It was so the person we were talking about payment, and the person said, I at the end they were like, "Oh, can I pay next week?" Which I would never do anyway, but uh, just from a business point of view. But they said, "Oh yeah, but I know where you live," sort of kind of jokingly. And this people went home and was like really upset, and the parents had to ring up, and there was a whole thing because they just took it the wrong way. And it just shows that you have to be really careful about what you say and how you say it.
I think as well, I'm over the years, I learn the people who I want to work with and the people I don't want to work with. And that's about my boundaries. So I think that's the other thing to be aware of when you're interacting with somebody. If they're saying things or behave in a way that you find difficult, maybe don't work with them. That's the other thing. You are entitled to do that. It doesn't happen very often. It's happened probably a handful of times in my career. I've been doing this 20 years. But there has been instances where somebody is we're just not aligned. Their languaging, their behaviors, their commitment, their unconscious biases, they're just not in alignment with me. And, I'll just maybe just say, they can tell they're not stupid. If something's a bit jarring, and yeah, I just think it's trying to work out that very, very occasionally there's going to be people who you're just not a good fit, and that's okay. Sometimes it's just kind of how that works. You can't be all things to all people. Most of the time, you're going to be fine, but then you're going to get in your career, you're going to get a couple of people, one or two people, you're just not a good fit.
Yeah, no, yeah, I've definitely had those people. Um, so another thing on this conversation, which kind of links to that actually, is checking in with people with disabilities and how that might affect their driving, which is really hard to do on a standard check because you probably already had that conversation with anyone. But is that something you do, or like with pupils when they first come to you? Do you ask them about?
Yeah, I say, is there anything that I can help you with? Is there any, particularly if they haven't explained to me that there's neurodiversity going on, but I suspect that there is. I'd never outrightly ask them, but I will say I've noticed that we're having a lot of repeated difficulty with X, Y, and Z. Is there any way that I can help you? Is there anything? Is there any? You tell me. How can I best support you? How
Yeah.
can I best support you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. I do something similar. I know some people have it written down on a form or something when they first get their inquiries, which is absolutely an option. For me, I personally like to find that out when I'm in the car because someone writing down I've got autism in on a form, like in a way, so what? Because actually everyone's autism's different
Yeah,
and everyone's
definitely.
different. So for me, I just want to have that chat with them and
Yeah.
and get them
Client,
to tell me how it affects them.
yeah, and it's all client centered, isn't it? This is the
Yeah.
thing. There is no one box. There is no one size fits all, and it's recognizing what our own, yeah, how it is for us as well, what we're bringing as an instructor, and recognizing. At the end of the day, you're a long time at work, and you want to make that experience enjoyable for yourself as well. You've got to think about, like for me, the fact I've been doing this for a long time, and I've decided to go automatic now. There are things we can do to make our own roles more varied, more interesting. So it's important that we support ourselves in all kinds of ways.
Brilliant. And that is a lovely, lovely place to wrap it up. Now, I do ask everyone for a top tip, which I've forgotten to tell you to do, but I'm sure you'll think of one. Um, but before we give your top tip for instructors, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, so my website is The Calm Side. So it's www.thecalmside.com. If you click on the top bar, it says what we do, and you'll find Guild of Mindful Driver Trainers. And there's resources on there, there's recommended books, there's all sorts of things. There's course efficacy. So I've actually done like a thing where recorded some of the information for people that've done the course. But yeah, go and check it out, have a look at that. And I'm on Facebook as well, Guild of Mindful Driver Trainers on Facebook. So yeah, pop up here and there. Top tip then, Phil.
Go for it.
Don't eat yellow snow. No, no, not that one. Wrong one. Hydrate and look after you. Look after you. Like, take time to look after you. It's important. It's important that you factor into your day, even if it's just 10 minutes between lessons, to hydrate, to eat properly, to give yourself downtime, to keep the balance right between the things that drain you and the things that sustain you. Keep in touch with the people in your life that you enjoy being around, your hobbies, your interests. Balance, basically. Keep balance and just look after yourself, because if you're not looking after yourself, you can't look after your pupils as well as you'd like to, and it basically affects all sorts of things, doesn't it? And ultimately it could result in you not wanting to go out and not being able, feeling that you can even go out and do a lesson. So yeah,
Nice.
take care of yourself, basically.
I love that one. I also love that. However, I've done maybe 20 of these episodes now, and every single top tip's been completely different. And I was like, oh yeah, yeah, that is a good, and it always gives me that sort of like, yeah, I would do that. So yeah, no, it's brilliant. Thank you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Phil. Good to see you.
Inspire Instructor Podcast, where the learning never stops.